And joining me now from Atlanta is political strategist Fred Hicks. Fred, thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. If anything, this whole trial has basically made Donald Trump more popular.
Well, it certainly has within a certain segment that is within the Republican Party. I don't know that it has done so nationally. We haven't seen a lot of polling information about that. Most of the polling information is really centered around what does this mean for him within the Republican Party, particularly given that he's trying to win the Republican nomination to be president of the United States again next year.
I mean, how likely is it for this trial to impact Donald Trump's political career in a negative way?
Well, that remains to be seen. Right now, only one Republican candidate for president next year, that is former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson, has taken a hard stand against Donald Trump. Everyone else has gone from somewhat of a muted position to a defensive position. And so this could bode well for him in the primary. But I think, like in 2020, his issues, in that case, it was indictments and how he handled COVID pandemic, will hurt him in the general election. But right now, this seems to be giving him a much needed lift in the Republican primary.
Fred, you're a political strategist, right? Let me ask you, if you were advising the former U.S. president right now, what would you tell him?
I tell him to do everything he can to minimize his legal trouble. Listen, he's already received the bump that he's going to get and that he needed in the polls to give him some distance between Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and himself. At this point, a conviction does not help. He tends to seek the limelight, like take the bump that you're getting right now and try to fly straight the rest of the way and just ride this wave. But I don't expect him to do that at all.
Right, and let me add one more question here very quickly. To what extent do you think this case has basically exacerbated, worsened the political divide in the country, the polarization in the country?
Well, Donald Trump is quite possibly definitely is the most polarizing political figure in America in my lifetime. Our history, we had elected officials who are polarizing to various degrees. But I think at this point in time right now, we're seeing this create sort of a wedge in a few different ways, a couple of wedges. One, within the Republican Party, because there are a segment of Republican voters, not elected officials, but voters who do not like this. So it's driving that kind of a wedge. And then there's with the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene out there fanning the flames and going to New York today to lead a protest. It's continuing to deepen the divide between Republican and Democrats, and that's not good. But I think it's important for the viewers to know that this is just one of three active cases that Donald Trump is facing right now. He's facing one in Georgia, and he's still facing another federal one, and so all related to 2020. So while this one might not, while it might deepen the wedge between Democrats and Republicans, I think if he's convicted of this as well as the other two issues, then at that point it reaches sort of a tipping point where it's really hard to defend him. And he'll always have his defenders, let me be clear, but I think at some point it becomes too much even for the average middle of the road American. So it remains to be seen. Listen, we're only at the beginning of April, and Donald Trump is going to dominate the news for the rest of the year. And with these other two active cases, we'll see what happens.
Right, we'll see what happens. Fred Hicks, thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.
Thank you for having me.